Hello, everybody, and welcome to our June 2024 astrology forecast. Each month, I'm going to be joined by our highly esteemed faculty members and special guests as we discuss the astrological weather for each month, looking at each rising sign and what might be coming up for you. Joining us today, I'm delighted to introduce Stevie Lowe. So thank you so much for joining us today, and how are you doing?
Doing really good. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to starting off this series with you.
Me too. Thank
So
you.
before we get to the rising signs, and you can see the timestamps at the bottom of this video, we're first going to talk about the significant events coming up in June. So going into our first week, Stevie, what comes up for you? What's the highlight?
Yeah, definitely. We're coming into June with Jupiter having ingressed into Gemini. I think that's gonna be the star of the show for for a little bit of this next from solstice on. Jupiter going from fixed Earth into mutable air. I'm even getting ideas in my mind right now, just invoking the name Jupiter and Gemini. But so we have all of these Earth problems, and now we're going into, I think, mental gymnastics arena of how do we solve everything? What is the solution? So,
That's a
um,
really good point. Going from the fixed air, we're going into fixed earth into mutable air. So we've got this social quality, this air, this expansion. So it's going to be quite a dynamic. And of course, we've got the twins. So I feel like, especially here, June 4th, with the Mercury Jupiter conjunction, there might be an element on the shadow side of maybe grandiosity. Of course, they're going to be big, bold ideas, but I think we're still going to have that element of polarization that's been, well, especially for the last few years, that's been going through.
mhm. Yeah, all of this Gemini action is it sort of everyone maybe putting their heads together, or maybe some people getting a big head as well. So I hear you on the hubris part. We got to watch out for our hubris. Yeah, especially with the Mercury conjunct Jupiter, we just get the vibe of teacher. So what are we going to be learning? Who's going to be teaching? And are they going to be, are we going to be a teacher's pet, or are we going to try and change the curriculum?
Absolutely, absolutely. And like you said, the grandiose ideas, but bold ideas, I think this is a good time to start jotting down any visions you have for the future. We've got Mercury, we've got communication. We're expanding this with Jupiter. So I think this would be a really great time, especially for socializing and getting around. I know June 4th is going to be on a Tuesday, so that might be work related. So, better on a weekend, but that's very much true. What are your thoughts on the Venus Cazimi in Gemini on the June 4th?
Yeah, I think Venus Kazemi just picks up on that benefic energy. And I love that you said jotting down ideas, because I definitely have Dear Diary, start a diary, collages, any kind of love letters even. So yeah, it's a kind of a beautiful time to say, write someone a card, give someone a positive little message. Love letters. That's what I see from the Kazemi.
I love that. For me, the Venus in the mutable air, it's almost for me a footloose and fancy free vibe. We've got that social quality. It's a Venus. I don't think that likes to be really tied down. So as you're saying, we're writing ideas, we're maybe communicating, socializing with the air quality as well. So this might be a wonderful day. As we get into the rising signs, we'll get deeper, more personalized into the charts. How about the Mars ingress into Taurus? What are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. That I'm not too stoked on. We're gonna get to it in the next week, but Mars is gonna ingress and very quickly hit a square to Pluto. So, you know, Mars going from his home into his detriment. So maybe things slow down quite a bit. Maybe our personal drives slow down quite a bit, and we don't have the fire under our bottoms anymore.
That's a really great point. We're going from the cardinal fire domicile where things are go, go, go. And when we're getting into Mars, into fixed Earth, I think we're kind of getting to a point where we're smelling the roses. As you're saying, we're slowing down a bit. There could be an element here on the shadow side of stubbornness. So watching out for that in the collective. But that's a really wonderful point. Fantastic. Okay, going into week two, Stevie, what jumps out at you? And I think you've touched on the Mars square Pluto.
Right. Yeah, this is like the Mars square Pluto from Taurus to Aquarius. It kind of reminds me of the the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, meets terrible law or something. It's just it looks bureaucratic and it looks yeah, it looks like two martial, Mars and Pluto, two malefic energies coming to a head. So I definitely say week two, wait to, if you have issues with anyone or quarrels, don't express those quarrels at this time.
That's such a good point, especially with the Mars, the square to Pluto. It can also have that explosive quality if people aren't careful. So I always say maybe give extra caution on the roads. If you're, partial to road rage, maybe, as you said, step back a little bit, take a bit of time. We're both in fixed signs here, so there's that extra fixed energy and that extra tension, I think, and especially as you said, with two malefic planets in a sense. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and then we go to the Mercury square Saturn. So that's another week two is obviously the tense week in June. Um, Another just, things might come to a head, things might be feeling restrained at that time. Best if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all in that case, which might be difficult with Mercury domiciled squaring Saturn, but
That's a really good point, that mutable quality as well. And to contrast maybe the Mercury and Jupiter conjunction, if we're saying too much as we get into the second week, it might be like, hold on a minute, let's think before we speak, as that
mm,
Mercury brushes up against that Saturn in the square. So as you're saying, Stevie, maybe thinking things through a bit more before people say something, especially as we went through that period of the Jupiter and expanding all those communications. But certainly a more cautious week, I think, as we get into week two. But of course, we've got Mercury Cazimi in Gemini. What are your thoughts on that
yeah,
week
that
three?
looks lovely. We're going back to the love letters type of vibe here. Whatever bad conversations happened earlier in the week, this is the chance to clear the air. um, or internalize what happened and reprocess for yourself in your own heart. Yeah, the Mercury square Saturn, someone might give you the cold shoulder. The Mercury Cazimi, you might come to understand why that happened.
That's such a wonderful point, because as we get into the Cazimi, we've already got Mercury domicile very strong anyway, but then we're getting extra power in a sense from the heart of the sun. So that's a really good point. So maybe if you've had some issues around June 12th, as you're saying, someone with the cold shoulder, maybe that clarifies in a few days after that. So maybe not to worry too much about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Going into week three, what stands out for you?
Definitely love the Venus ingress here. Venus is going to be our balm and our salve. I'm just thinking it's going to be exhausting all of the Venus energy in the first week. And we flirted with everyone. And now we're like, who's going to respond to the flirts?
I love that.
Now you come to me.
So we're in the footloose and fancy free stage and socializing, get to meet everyone. So if you are free and single, maybe this is a time, as you're saying, maybe you get one of those replies.
Yeah. Mercury ingress following right after, and then we have Venus conjoined with Mercury in Cancer. So we had, the mental processing, and now it's time to integrate it emotionally. Now it's time to more flirting, but now it's maybe a little bit more serious of a flirt and less playful, more comforting or soothing. So yeah.
That's such a wonderful point. And we really got a big shift here in week three. We're going from that mutable air. We've got many planets ingressing into the cardinal water. We've got the Venus, the Mercury, and the Sun later on the 20th. So, as you're saying, we're going from this lighter air quality into maybe the more personal realm of closer friends, closer family and kin, and maybe staying close to home. So, if you're married or already with a partner, this may be a great time, especially with the Mercury Venus conjunction, maybe going out to a restaurant or having that emotional quality, that water polarity which pulls in rather than the air that pushes out. So there's going to be, I feel, really a shift in the energy and the dynamics as we get into week three.
Yeah, this looks like okay, summer vacation starting now. People
I
are going
love
to
that.
the pools.
Especially when we get into Cancer season, I love big bodies of water, so
Mhm.
that's certainly part of it as well. So speaking of the June 22nd, we've got the Cancer solstice. So what do you want to say about that?
Yeah, it's a beautiful full moon solstice, and I'm looking forward to the sun's ingress as well. I think everything is going to be now averse to Jupiter, so I'm interested to see if we feel like something's still hanging back from that time. Um, but we're going into the dog days of summer here. So it's again, the sun ingressing is like the final boop. It's gonna get hot. So it's what do they call it? Breakup season during summer and cuffing season during winter. So
This could be, as you said, especially with the mutable energy, maybe the week before, some breakups,
yeah.
all those kind of things.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
it's sort of picking your summer crew, picking your small group, picking your crew and planning your vacays and everything like that.
I love that. I get that vibe as well. So it's, either family vacations or you're going with close friends, you're either going hiking or going to the beach if you're near
Mhm.
the coast and just taking off on these trips. As you said, the summer kicks in and everyone wants to be out and about. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, moving into week 4, we've only got really one significant event. Of course, this is not extensive. We've not put everything in here, but what are
Mhm.
you thinking about the Saturn station in retrograde?
You know, I'm really interested about that. We've seen so much disturbances in water, so much um disturbances in relief aid and things like that. So this retrograde, I'm thinking a time to go over like sort of the rubble and the intensities of Saturn and Pisces and really kind of see what's salvageable for the direct. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that statement. I don't know about you, but it feels like this year, certainly since the middle of January, like life has just gone such at full steam ahead in the
Hmm.
last couple of months. And we've only had what we've got right now, Pluto retrograde, and it feels like everything's been moving. It feels like this year's gone so fast that I feel like the Saturn station in retrograde maybe put the brakes on a little bit more as we maybe slow down, start to assess, particularly maybe with the Mars ingress into fixed Earth as well. Maybe it's a time as we get later into June where we start again slowing down and reassessing. Obviously, when we get to the rising signs, where that's going to be in each individual's life.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. That's exactly the vibe. Slowing down, no more full steam ahead. What did we overlook in the rush of this year so far? So yeah.
That's a really great point. Absolutely. Okay, going into our first rising sign, we have our Aries rising friends. So, Stevie, what are your thoughts for our Aries rising friends for the month of June?
Yeah, well, this is interesting. We're gonna have a lot of activity in the third house. So the love letters, especially for that one, playfulness, maybe people with doing a lot of errands, running around town. Um, and it looks quite lovely. So if you if you're in Aries and you haven't gone out to a coffee shop or a local third space, that would be a great time to get yourself involved in those third spaces, little groups or yeah, just local places, local treasures. Um,
I love that because it does have that with that mutable air. Of course, we've got the Jupiter ingress into Aries rising first, third house, and that's going to be around a year, so that's going to be a long time
mhm,
transiting through. But we've got Venus there co-present. We've got the Sun. So as you're saying, Stevie, your local areas, maybe go to that coffee shop. If you're a writer or you enjoy writing blogs, this would be a great time for you over this period of June, especially early June in the first couple of weeks. And yeah, I love that point.
yeah. And we have the fourth and 10th axis being triggered by the solstice. We also have it sort of being triggered by that Saturn retrograde. So work stuff definitely might come to the forefront this part of the year, this month. And as it's noted here, home and family as well.
That's a really good point. So as we get later into June, we're going to have some of these planets. We'll have the Mercury, the Venus, and the Sun ingressing into your fourth house. So we're highlighting here home and family, all those kind of dynamics. So as we've gone through all the mutable air and the communications and maybe going on those short journeys around town, maybe we're staying closer to home and focusing in on home life and all those kind of events. Maybe one caution I would say, we've got obviously as an Aries rising, your chart ruler is Mars, and right now it's domicile, as Stevie was talking about before. But I think as we ingress into the fixed Earth and going into your second house, now the positive angle of this might be extra energy put into maybe going into pulling in more resources, so maybe finding a side job, all those kind of things. But on the flip side of that, on the shadow side, it could be a time of conflict between maybe some of your self-worth. It could actually manifest as physical possessions, manifestations of that, maybe conflict in those areas. What are your thoughts, Stevie, about this Mars ingress into the second?
Yeah, that's a great point. Mars squaring Pluto from the 2nd to the 11th, and sort of like having to pay your union dues in order to have the union. And, maybe you don't agree with everything that's going on in the union, but you still have to kind of pay the dues. And yeah, it's sort of that feeling of frustration or conflict in a way. Maybe it's a time where you reevaluate and divest from a group that you're um, in order to feel a little bit more at peace for a longer term process.
That's a really great point. And if you pull yourself out of this chart of all the transiting planets, we're really here on an Eastern Hemisphere side. So I think my keywords for Aries Rising is you do you. You've got all these planets, particularly in the first quadrant as well, all transiting through. So it's really, for me, it's your self-development, working on yourself. What do you value? What's coming up in your life? It's less to do with the Western Hemisphere and about others, particularly as we've got the eclipses since 2023 flipping through the first and the seventh house, but we've got the North Node transiting through the first house. And I think that just reinforces that point of you do you. I think would be my keywords for Aries Rising.
That's fantastic.
I love that. Yeah, you Aries Rising, you do you.
You do you.
So let us know in the comments below. Let us know how life has been treating you this year in the last couple of months, and let's see if any of these thoughts resonate with you. Wonderful. Okay, on to our Taurus Rising friends. Stevie, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so this one looks fun. I think I'm going straight for the Mars on this one. The Mars is gonna be a time where maybe you feel like you have to pick up the pace a little bit as a Taurus, but that doesn't feel quite comfortable. Mars there squaring Pluto in the 10th, so it could be demands from work. I think you noted here possession, self-worth, the second house there. So that activity looks quite fun. I would warn against anyone overspending at this time because there's just so much happiness in the second that it might be really enticing. But I think everything in the second is eventually going to square Saturn too. So you want to invest in long-term like good for you things and not long-term bad for you things.
That's absolutely wonderful advice. I picked up on the Mars as well. So obviously, whole sign, we've been transiting through the 12th. We're going to get into your first house. Now, maybe on the shadow side, especially if you have early degrees of Taurus rising, maybe some of that theme of being careful, maybe out on the roads. Of course, the ascendant has to do with the body. And with Mars not being too happy in fixed Earth, certainly be cautious, I would say, as Mars transits your ascendant, particularly if you're early degrees. And of course, that will carry on as we go into July as well. But it could also mean, your body, your self appearance, and maybe putting energy into changing your appearance. So there are always the positive and the shadow sides of everything. But yeah, Stevie, I totally agree with you. You've got the Jupiter ingressing into your second house, and that's going to be hovering around there for a year. So Stevie, I'm with you. Don't overspend as that's going through. But on the other side of that, this could be an expansion or abundance of wealth coming through. Maybe have a new income revenue stream, all those kind of thing. Of course, we've got Venus coming through there in the early part of June, as well as the sun highlighting your second house. So this could be a great time for bringing in more money, more resources. Maybe you want to buy something in for the home, physical possessions, all those kind of things. And yeah, I totally go along with what you say. Wonderful. I think just adding on to maybe the cautiousness of the Mars going across the ascendant, we do have the nodes flipping through the 6th and the 12th axis. So for me, it's already bringing up that element of possible health. I know we've got other topics in those houses, but as that Mars is transiting across your ascendant, and Stevie, you picked out the square to Pluto, maybe being, I would say, a bit extra cautious in terms of body health, all those kind of factors. So keep an eye out for those, I would say, as well.
That's a great point. And pet health. Yeah, so Tauruses get a piercing during the Mars in the first. Just make sure you clean your piercing.
I love that. That's a great advice.
Keep the piercings cleaned.
I love it. I love it. And certainly as we get deeper into June, we'll have the Mercury, the Venus, and the Sun coming into your 3rd house. So as we've got some of the themes coming here, we've got communication. This could be the short trips Stevie was saying before to the local coffee shop. It could be extra time with siblings. All these themes, 3rd house themes, will start probably manifesting in the latter half of June. Wonderful. So our Taurus Rising friends, let us know in the comments how life has been treating you. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, on to our Gemini Rising friends. Stevie, what are your thoughts for our Gemini ascendant folk?
Yeah, this is definitely quite lovely. And to piggyback off of the 1st house in appearance, this is a great moment for Geminis to get to really play around with their appearance, their style, maybe new hair colors, maybe new outfits, maybe working on beach bods. So yeah, it looks really lovely, and I would definitely go for a new look if I had all that good stuff in my first.
I love that. Change it up, change your style, see what you want to do. You got that mutable air quality. If one thing doesn't work, mutable quality, you can change it, swap it again. I love that. Absolutely, absolutely. I think my only caution as Jupiter is going to spend the best part of a year transiting through your 1st house. Now, as Stevie is saying, you've got all those, the greater benefic, maybe wonderful opportunities to work on, first impressions, your appearance. I don't think this is probably a good time to start a diet. So my maybe word of caution would be to maybe watch your food and drink intake. Maybe don't overindulge as Jupiter transits through the 1st, but certainly you've got the 2 benefics working its way through for your 1st house. Venus, certainly for a time as we get deeper into June, we'll have the Mercury, the Venus, and the Sun transiting to your 2nd house. So the highlight will shift there into your self-worth, your finances, your possessions. Particularly as Venus goes through there, it might be a small element or a small element of revenue coming through, extra money, all those kind of things. What are your thoughts, Stevie, on that?
Yeah, I think so too. Jupiter is ruling the 10th house in the 1st. So again, maybe when Venus and Sun are there, it would be a great time to apply for jobs. By the time they make it to your 2nd house in Cancer, maybe you get it called back about the job, or asking for a raise, or things, things that might be realistic in your own life. This is a great time to start those new projects.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm interested in with this Mars as well. So I'd ask my Gemini Rising friends if you've recently been in a lot of group activities, putting a lot of effort and energy into working with groups and with others. And as we get further into June, we're going to have that Mars ingressing fixed Earth through your 12th. Now, I would say probably on the positive end of this might be a good time to take action. If you're feeling a bit overwhelmed or overworked, maybe go on a retreat, get away, take action that way. On the shadow side, it could be a time where there's maybe conflict, could be hidden enemies, where maybe people are trying to work against you, but it also could just mean you're working behind the scenes. So maybe being a bit cautious of that Mars transiting through the 12th. Of course, if you've got a day chart or a night chart, you can look at both of the malefics, see which one's the out of sect one. But maybe that's an element maybe to be a little bit cautious of if anyone's trying to work against you that in this time period as we get into June. Any thoughts on that, Stevie?
Yeah, that's a great point. Or a time where you're coming into maybe a conflict with your beliefs when we see Mars squaring Pluto in the 9th.
Mm.
And maybe you have to kind of go within yourself and reevaluate some of those higher beliefs, or if you're in school, some of those educational issues that you might be experiencing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for Gemini Rising, you've got the nodes. We've got going through the North Node through the 11th and the South Node through the 5th. Any thoughts on that, Stevie, for our Gemini Rising friends?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. In South Node in the fifth might have you feeling a lack of creativity, or maybe that some of the creative things that you're doing are not at the point you want them to be. But I think looking at the North Node in the 11th, maybe you can go to friends or people that support you and get their honest opinion and have them kind of be the harbinger of pulling the creativity out of you. You know, you don't need to force yourself to create, but sometimes the act of just camaraderie can clear up mental stress or anguish and open the door into creation as well.
I love that. I love that, Stevie. And we've not touched on Saturn yet. Saturn at the end of the month will station to go retrograde. And for you, Gemini Rising, you've got Saturn transiting through your 10th house. Stevie, any thoughts on what that might denote?
Yeah, well, that is definitely square the ascendant there. So maybe stuff about work coming up, maybe stuff about maybe you're being worked to the bone and kind of exhausted. Yeah, so reevaluating, in the beginning I said, oh, maybe it would be a good time to ask for a raise.
Mm.
Well, if you don't do that, maybe when this retrograde happens, some kind of internalizing might go on with that. What is my job giving me? Am I really meant to be here for the long term? Is this helping my reputation or my overall goals and where I want to go?
That's a really great point. And I think if Gemini Rising, you're feeling maybe a bit overwhelmed in work right now or working so hard, I'd maybe take that retreat or at least take some time, maybe pamper yourself as you've got this Jupiter, Venus, Sun coming through the first. Maybe go and relax, take a spa day, rejuvenate, and come back fresher. Of course,
Mhm.
we've got the preponderance of planets on the eastern part of the chart here. So again, this is still working, you're developing yourself out in society still, so you might still have a lot of work projects going on, but I'd still maybe take some of that time to relax and maybe pamper yourself and enjoy some of the summer. Absolutely wonderful. So Gemini Rising friends, let us know in the comments below how your life has been going in the last couple of months and tell us more in the comments. Wonderful. Okay, on to our Cancer Rising friends. Stevie, what are your thoughts here?
Cancer risings. They have a lot going on behind the scenes this month. And everything that's been going on behind the scenes is going to pop into their first, not Jupiter. So yeah, I think it's quite nice that Venus and the Sun are getting that message from Jupiter, and they get to kind of carry that message forth into the first house. Um, But for the first part, it might be actually very a confusing time. Maybe they realize they can't go take the summer vacation. They have to stay indoors this summer. Um, Squaring the ninth house Saturn up there. So yeah, feeling that sense of restriction, maybe summer school for some people, maybe summer jobs for some. Not quite super fun and carefree, but definitely active, even if behind the scenes.
Those are such great points. And I feel like for Cancer Rising, it's not been so smooth sailing for the last couple of months. Of course, Stevie, as we're talking about, we've got the ingress of Jupiter into your 12th, Venus and the Sun working your way through there. So, on the positive area and the positive side, maybe taking a time to take those retreats, go somewhere else where you can meditate and relax. And maybe if work, especially, has been, conflict ridden or there's been some issues in your public area of life, maybe this is a good time to recharge, reevaluate. And as Stevie's saying, as we get the Mercury, the Venus, and the Sun ingressing into your first house, maybe this is a time where hopefully some of those conflicts are resolved, and it's a time to work on yourself. Maybe if you want to change your appearance, go for a spa day, relax, rejuvenate, and come back refreshed. Especially if you have been having any conflicts at work, anything, all those sort of things. But even with Mars going through the 10th, on the positive area, it could be a lot of energy and a lot of energy pushed through in the area of career, your public reputation. So that might be getting a bit too much. So certainly go and relax. We'll have that Mars ingress into the 11th. So the switch of energy here might be into your fixed Earth 11th house. Maybe you'll be more involved in group projects or community events, all those kind of things. Any thoughts on that, Stevie?
Yeah, Mars in the 11th up there in fixed Earth, that's the marathon, not the sprint. So what are those longer term projects that you really have to sustain energy throughout? Those are great, are going to be great to invest in. So Mars is in detriment there, but that doesn't necessarily mean something bad will happen. It just means a lot of particular energy is going into Mars more so than maybe in Aries where it's just sort of easy. So yeah, I think marathon, not the sprint, in terms of groups, associations, love received from others. Yeah.
And you probably felt that disruptive energy for a while now with Uranus transiting through the 11th, maybe some, sudden changes with groups or friends, those kind of dynamics would be interesting. We've got Saturn at the end of June, station in retrograde. Any thoughts there, Stevie?
Yeah, that's again, it's just, Saturn rules the seventh house and eighth house. So this retrograde might be a time where you're reevaluating partnerships, commitments within partnerships. So whatever the logistical exchange is happening, eighth house stuff, as well as the seventh. Um,
That's a really great point. And maybe with the retrograde, maybe you've been in higher education, you're working maybe to a higher degree, a bachelor's, a master's, whatever that might be. So that might be just some, putting the brakes on a little bit, maybe going back over work, revising as you go through that. And that's probably going to be a message from Saturn there. Because as you said, the first couple of months of this year's gone by so fast. This Saturn station retrograde is just going to put the brakes on a little bit more. And tying into your ninth house, I think that's going to become apparent. Particularly if you're looking to travel overseas, I'd probably be a bit more mindful of that, particularly if that Saturn is your outer set malefic, just keeping those things in mind. But certainly I think Cancer Rising, I think you probably have put in a lot of work in the last few months. Take some time to relax, rejuvenate, and come back fresher, I think I would say. Wonderful. Well, Cancer Rising friends, let us know in the comments how life has been treating you in the last couple of months, in the last few weeks, and we'd love to hear what's been going on for you. Okay, on to our Leo Rising friends. What are your thoughts, Stevie?
This looks really fun. Definitely at the beginning we have a fun, but the main issue for this is the Mars going into the 10th. That doesn't look too fun there. So where I do want to really enjoy that 11th house for the Leos out there, I think everything in the 11th is going into the 12th, and then you have Mars going into the 10th. So a lot more tense than other rising signs. A lot more maybe pressure put on work, put on available time. Really maybe feeling even split between having time to spend with friends and having responsibilities.
Those are really great points. There's that Mars that I picked up on as well. So we've been transiting through your ninth house. As we get into June, we're going to go through the 10th. So on the shadow side, it could be an element of conflict at work. Maybe public reputation might be pulled into there as well, keeping that in mind. But it also could mean just a lot of energy pushed into that area of life. Maybe you've got extra work coming up, all those kind of things, maybe part of it. Stevie, I really love what you're saying. We've got a packed 11th here right now. So it might have been a good time, especially as Jupiter will ingress into 11th for around a year. You're probably building up, expanding maybe your social networks, working with other people, group projects, all those kind of themes that pull through. We've got Venus there co-present as well until we transit through into your 12th house. So I really love what you're saying there, Stevie. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the sun rules the ascendant here, so I think even this one could be good for trying on a new look as well and just being playful with your appearance. Mhm.
That's a really good point. So maybe for Leo rising, it might be quite active at the beginning of the month, but as we have some of these planets, the Mercury, the Venus, and the Sun transit through your 12th, maybe this is a good time to maybe go and retreat, rejuvenate, go somewhere where you can relax and meditate, all those kind of things. Also, keep an eye out on anyone who might be maybe trying to work against you behind the scenes. Keep that in mind. That's the shadow side of planets transiting through the 12th. Also, an element of self undoing. So, if you tend to be over grandiose or overdo things, maybe settle down a bit and rejuvenate and relax, which I think I would say as well. Any thoughts? We've got Saturn at the end of the month, station in retrograde. Any thoughts on the Saturn here for Leo rising, Stevie?
Yeah. Well, in Leo rising, Saturn rules the sixth and the seventh house, so we might have the element of partnership come up again. We also might have some of those sixth house topics, short-term confinement, maybe some kind of health or the health of a pet. So in this way, it's not so much as the partner and the partner's resources, but maybe the partner and your own resources and your own health, or maybe responding to animals that you have, things like sixth house stuff.
That's a really good point. And again, transiting through the eighth, we're stationed to go retrograde here. As Stevie's saying, all those themes might come up, whether that's shared resources with partners. Certainly, if there's been any tax issues in the last couple of months, all those kind of things, maybe keep an eye out for. Particularly if this is your outer set malefic, just keep an eye on that Saturn. Any thoughts on the nodes? So for Leo rising, you've got the nodes, the transiting north node through the ninth and the south node through the third. Any thoughts here, Stevie?
Yeah, definitely the traffic thing. Be careful on the roads out there with the south node. Um, yeah, well, there's going to be an intense fire that kind of dims down a bit when Mars leaves the nodes, the signs of the node. But the north node is still going to be there, and so what are those ninth house things that you put energy into? Are you starting a blog? Are you trying to publish something? Have you gone back to school, or is there some kind of higher education or even astrology, something like that happening in the ninth for you?
That's a wonderful point. Absolutely. And for you, Leo rising, your preponderance of planets, the transiting planets, we're here in the southern hemisphere. So this is very public and it has been for a while. So that public standing, not much going on in the lower half of the chart, in the more private areas. So you are going to be very visible, I think, for a while still, as we go through June and everything that we've discussed. And I like what you're saying, Stevie. Of course, you've had Mars domicile going through, ruling the ninth for the past couple of weeks. So maybe you've put more energy into higher education, higher learning, maybe studying at Kepler, if you're a Leo rising as well, all those kind of events and themes that are coming up for you. Wonderful. So let us know, our Leo rising friends, let us know in the comments how life has been treating you in the last couple of months and last couple of weeks. We'd love to hear from you. On to our Virgo rising friends. Stevie, what are your thoughts? What stands out for you?
Yeah, definitely the fun 10th house up there stands out. Jupiter in the 10th, so for sure public standing, which you noted here. What's going on with that? Especially when Mercury joins Jupiter there. And, that is interesting. Do you have a new boss at work who has a big inflated ego, or did you get a raise, or are you getting certain honors? Jupiter is going to be there for a year, so yeah, it's a good time to be show who you are at work and show what you can offer. With the Sun, Cazimi, Venus, again, if you're gonna shoot your shot for a raise or something like that, you want to use that window of time where you're being graced with that Cazimi.
I really love those statements, Stevie. And as you're saying, we've got the two benefics transiting through the 10th house. That Jupiter is going to hover around for the best part of a year, especially if I have early degrees, your midheaven in there. Stevie, I love that point, what you're saying. So if you've been working hard and you've been looking, you've maybe working maybe behind the scenes, maybe this is a time to showcase, as Stevie's saying, your skills, that public recognition. Maybe you'll get some type of award or recognition in what you're doing. Conversely, as Stevie's saying, you might have a bloated boss, or there's always a shadow side to everything that happens. But this is quite visible, and this is all going through your 10th house. So really, I love the two benefics going through the 10th and that public standing and reputation. As we get further into June, we'll have the Mercury, the Venus, and the Sun ingressing into your 11th house. Any thoughts there, Stevie, as some of those planets ingress into the 11th?
Yeah, and as they all go through Cancer, they're going to square the nodes. So that's another, we have the South Node in the second. It's going to be squared. It's going to be maybe a conflict between what you can enjoy with others and what you can afford. And it's also, I kind of went with the 10th house transits asking for a raise. Definitely also kind of like makes me think, what do you have to invest in yourself in order to have have more money later? And so it might be having, going into Cancer, doing at the bendings of the nodes, might have that flavor of necessity when it comes to finances.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Interestingly, this Mars is being transiting through your 8th house now. As we get into June, we're going to be going into Mars's detriment as we transit your 9th house. Now, that Mars rules your 3rd house as well. So maybe there might be an element of conflict or communicating with others. That might be an issue, whether that's your higher belief systems. There may be some issues there with the 3rd and 9th axis as that Mars transits through your 9th. Any thoughts on that, Stevie?
Yeah, sibling rivalry. Yeah, so for some of the other signs, we're telling them to go out to the coffee shops. We're telling you not to go out to the coffee shop.
So for Virgo Rising, yeah, stay away from the coffee shops. Or if you've got any issues with siblings, maybe wait a little while before you go back to converse with them. Absolutely. So at the end of June, we're going to have Saturn stationing to go retrograde. This has been transiting through your 7th house. Any thoughts there, Stevie, on this Saturn?
Yeah, that's definitely back into the partnership realm. This is because Saturn is in the 7th for Virgos. So we have, maybe taking a step back over a relationship, maybe resolving past conflicts in a relationship. We have the 5th house and 6th house involved. So again, this could be the health of a pet, the health of yourself or a child, issues with boundaries, creating boundaries with your children, depending on what age they are and everything.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying. There might be a health component here. So you've got your Saturn, it's ruling the 6th, but as Saturn is transiting through your 7th, at some point, whatever your degree of ascendant is, there's going to be an opposition there. So I think it's going to highlight if you've had any maybe subtle elements, anything like that, maybe keeping an eye out on any health issues that might be coming up around this time. You'll probably be feeling that anyway if you've got early degrees of Virgo. That might be part of it as well, I would say.
Right, and the Mars is not helping with that. There might be, Mars trying the ascendant in Taurus might make you feel like you have the energy to do it, and then you might, pull a hamstring or something. So be careful on your exercises with that as well.
That's a really great point. Really great point. And for you, Virgo Rising, your nodes have been going through the South Node through the 2nd, the North Node through the 8th. Any thoughts there, Stevie?
Yeah, I think mostly it's going to peak around the cardinal season, so the Cancer season, that when the Sun, Venus, and Mercury are going to be at the bendings, it might be that challenge or feeling of restriction with finances. What am I investing in versus what am I getting out of my investments?
Absolutely, absolutely. So for you, Virgo Rising, I think it's a fairly mixed bag. I do love these benefics through in your 10th. That Venus is going to transit into your 11th as well. So, but we do have, I think, a bit of a mixed bag, like we always do. Always check out your own natal chart to see what's going in a more personalized way. And I think with the distribution of these planets, we're a bit more we're still fairly, we're southern hemisphere here, so we've still got these planets above the horizon. So for Virgo rising, it's still a public time for you, as a lot of these planets are transiting above your horizon. So again, very much a public time for you. A bit more to the western hemisphere as you're starting to deal with others. So if that's becoming a little bit ikesome, maybe try and take some time to develop on your own and take a break from other people if you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great.
Wonderful. So Virgo rising people, let us know in the comments how life has been treating you in the last couple of months and the last couple of weeks. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, on to our Libra rising friends. Stevie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I just hope that this Gemini blessing is sort of relieves a little tension for the Libra risings because they've had the South Node going through their first house for a while now, and Mars going through the seventh. So there could have been, feelings of challenges in relationships and not necessarily feeling totally comfortable with yourself or fully feeling like you know yourself at this point, or just feeling extremely taxed. So hopefully that all that Gemini goodness just gives a little bit more buoyancy to the self and maybe gives you just a breath of fresh air.
I love that statement. A breath of fresh air, absolutely. And I can speak as a Libra rising. Everything you're saying, Stevie, has been very much true for me. In the last year, unfortunately, I lost my grandmother, and we've been working with my family with the estate that we're dealing with. So I've had that Jupiter transit in the eighth house. Now, that doesn't mean inheritance is for every Libra rising person, but for me, that's the theme that's being pulled up. So inheritance is coming through, but I have had one-on-one conflicts with other people. And as that Mars is going to transit through the eighth house, I believe I'm going to have more conflicts with family members based on the shared resources. And so maybe some of those themes might pop up for you. Of course, we're all different. My chart is different to other Libra rising. So as that Mars, as it goes out of its domicile, transits through the eighth, maybe keeping an eye on any conflicts that might arise between you and your partner, any shared resources, any tax issues, any of those kind of themes. There might be some conflicts that come around. But Stevie, I love what you're saying about the breath of fresh air as some of these planets go through the ninth. And obviously this Jupiter is going to spend the best part of a year for Libra risings going through your ninth house. So if you're thinking about traveling abroad and expanding your horizons, whether that's even studying, maybe going for higher education, maybe going for your degree or your master's, or studying astrology if you're at KeplerCollege, this is a great time to do that as well. And as Stevie's saying, a great bit of fresh air, especially as those planets are going in.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think if you've been on the fence about starting a ninth house venture, this is a fantastic time to go to an astrology school, find a mentor, put the intentions out to find the right teacher. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I love, we've got the two benefics here. We've got our chart rule of Venus. And as we get deeper into June, we're going to have the Mercury, the Venus, and the Sun transit through the 10th. So there may be themes of your career, your work life, your public standing might come into view with some of these planets. So that's something to keep an eye out for there as well. Any thoughts there, Stevie?
Yeah. It's sort of like you said, the public standing. So in the, we have all the quick planets going through the ninth, collecting a lot of stuff to try, trining the ascendant, and then it's all going to square the ascendant. So all of these things that, oh, let's make this plan and this plan and this plan. And this is the time where it's like, oh gosh, I have to do all of this stuff.
Absolutely. And speaking of the nodes, we've been having our South Node transiting through our first house and the North Node through the seventh. And actually speaking to CV, what you were saying before about things being a bit taxing, it certainly has been for me. I don't know about the rest of our Libra rising friends, but as we have that South Node coming through the ascendant, it maybe I feel that draining of energy sometimes, where you may be a little bit overtaxed, you're feeling a bit not as energetic. I know we can look at Mars in domicile, all those bits and pieces, but that South Node coming through there, for me, it's been that draining of energy, basically between the conflict with other people with that North Node. So Stevie, what you were saying there before was completely spot on with those nodes transiting through. And of course, us with with the eclipses from 2023 hovering through the first and the seventh, it's about us versus other people and relationships. And as we have a preponderance of these planets in the Western hemisphere on the right-hand side of the chart, us Libra risings, we're really dealing with other people in our lives right now as all these planets are
Yeah.
transiting through the Western part of this
Yeah.
chart.
Yeah, and there's really a self-reflected point to that of like whenever we deal with relational issues, we redefine who we are, really. So there's, that South Node is sort of like going inside and saying, what am I without you? What am I with you? And yeah, just deepening that personal relationship to yourself.
I love that. Absolutely. And one of the things we'll touch on at the later end of the month, we have that Saturn stationing to go retrograde. So any thoughts, Stevie, here on this Saturn?
Yeah, definitely. Again, we talked about health for a couple of different signs. So this one, health, or if you work in healthcare, um, issues with work, also pets. Um, we have Saturn ruling the fourth and fifth house. So again, maybe the creativity piece, maybe you need or there needs to be a reevaluation on what am I doing that is fun? Am I able to take risks? Am I able to take a healthy risk, or are my risks not paying off? Are my risks too big? Um, which I think we might see even more later when Jupiter moves through Gemini and squares Saturn as well.
That's a really great point. For me, Saturn going through our sixth house, for me, it's been, I know us as astrologers, we can see what's coming up. We don't always take our own advice.
Yeah.
So for me, in terms of health and regime, I have a strong Mars. My Mars is domicile in Aries natally. But with that Saturn going through the sixth, in terms of my day-to-day habits, and certainly when it regards to health, my diet and my intake has been awful this year.
Mm,
Things have been so go, go, go. I've been eating awful food, processed, drinking a lot, going
mm.
down the pub. So even though I know this advice, I really do. I think, especially as Saturn is going to go retrograde, I need to, and maybe some of you Libra Rising as well, maybe that topic of health will come up. So I really do now have to pay attention to that and rework my daily habits and routines in
Right.
terms of that health component as well, which
Right.
I plan to do.
Yeah, and with the fourth house rulership there, it's what can I do in my own home to make it a healthier space for me to live in?
I love that point. I love that point. Yep, Saturn ruling the fourth. So yeah, what changes do I need to make the day-to-day routines and lead a healthier lifestyle? That's certainly true for me. So let us know, Libra Risings, in the comments how life has been treating you in the last couple of the months and the last couple of weeks. Wonderful.
Mm.
Okay, on to our Scorpio Rising friends. Stevie, what are your thoughts?
Scorpios. Yeah, so the relationship conflicts could be coming up for Scorpios. The Libras already had a big portion of that, and now it's Scorpio's turn. So definitely the Mars stands out to me. We've seen everything go through and hit Uranus over there. We had the big Venus Jupiter moment, and now that Mars is coming through as sort of the cleanup committee of the party. Um, what kind of waste, what kind of composting and waste do we have to take care of after this massive party with Jupiter, Venus, Sun, Mercury, and Uranus all in your seventh house?
Those are such great statements. And I picked up on that, Mars, as well. As we're moving out of the sixth, transiting through the seventh house, maybe will, as Stevie is saying, maybe an element of conflict with others. Maybe, it could be romantic partnerships that you may be falling out with, an element of conflict. It could be business partners. It could be an element of open enemies where things start to get a little bit, a little bit, rock and roll. It could be more energy into these areas of life, but I'd certainly watch out for that Mars, especially as it goes into its detriment as we get into the fixed Earth. I very much like what you're saying there, Stevie. How about our mutable air planets? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's all happening in the eighth house. So there is a lot of thought and attention and details being put on handling other people's information or them handling your information. So this one definitely piques my, oh yes, tax season type of thing, eighth house, air. Um, but it's all buoyant and benefic, so hopefully you get a big tax return back together. Um,
Stevie, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Also loans, maybe your partner is taking out a loan for something. Yeah, so just focusing on the details of, the shared assets and resources. Mhm.
Those are really great points. And as Jupiter, we've got the best part of the year of Jupiter transiting through the eighth. So some of those themes, as Stevie's saying, maybe you get nice tax returns coming up, maybe hopefully not, but if an inheritance comes through, all those kind of themes of what's going on right now. We've got the two benefics there. So depending what else is going on in your chart, and maybe the condition of the planets in the eighth or ruling the eighth in your natal chart, maybe this is a good time, as Stevie's saying, if you wanted to get a loan or the partner was getting a loan. Two benefics there, I think, really speak to that. As we get the faster moving planets, as we get the Sun, the Venus, and the Mercury transiting and ingressing into your ninth house, any thoughts there, Stevie?
Yeah. I mean, maybe you took out a loan for school and then you start school. So if you have plans like that, use this time for that. The ninth house, again, we can look at it as long distance travel or astrology itself or mentors of higher education. So maybe it's you taking on a role of mentorship. Maybe it's you stepping into some kind of a new project or some kind of a publishing of, earlier we said this Dear Diary for a lot of this energy. So maybe publishing your diary or doing some kind of personal sharing with a trine to the first house.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just looking at this chart, it makes me wonder for you Scorpio risings whether you've had some focus. We've got Mars, although domicile, it's been transiting through your six. Have you been, in the last couple of weeks working on your changing up your day-to-day living, maybe any health concerns? Because I just noticed we have the nodes through the 12th and the 6th axis. So, and as Mars being your chart ruler going through the 6th, it makes me wonder in the last couple of weeks, have you had any health concerns or any health issues that might have popped up? That's just something that flashed into my mind then as we've got the nodes in there, maybe highlighting some of those areas. I don't know what your thoughts might be, Stevie.
Yeah, that's a great point. Mars is in its element there, so there could have been a lot more energy put into that. And it's always good to be careful, like you said, there's always sort of a shadow side that's present as well. So overexertion that leads you to being just fully exhausted when Mars goes into Taurus.
That's exactly what I was thinking as well. Maybe that overextension and over that overexhaustion and taxing yourself. Yeah, I think that's very much true. And talking about Saturn, so at the end of June 29th, we'll have Saturn stationing to go retrograde. Any thoughts there, Stevie, for our Scorpio rising friends?
Yeah, I mean, the kids are going to be home for summer, so it's, now finding am I going to send my kid to camp, summer camp? Am I going to be home with them? What's the deal? What's the lay of the land for that?
Oh, well,
Um,
yeah, kids off school, maybe structuring some fun activities with the kids,
yep.
maybe leading those kind of activities might be a good idea.
hmm Yeah. Or going back over things that you've written or created, or artistic endeavors there, music or poetry or something, and doing some edits, getting some good editing time.
I like that. And this theme kind of ties into the preponderance of the planets. We're here, really, if you're looking at your chart, we've got the transiting planets in the Western hemisphere of your chart. So really here, all these planets, you're dealing with other people quite a bit. Now,
hmm
even if a Scorpio rising, if you have maybe your chart ruler under the horizon, maybe a bit of alone time. But at this moment in time, all these planets in the Western hemisphere, you're dealing with other people, whether that's other people in your immediate environment or even out close personal relationships. I've got a theme here that you've been dealing with a lot of people, especially one-on-ones and all those kind of things. Wonderful. So Scorpio Rising friends, let us know in the comments how life has been treating you in the last couple of months, in the last couple of weeks, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Okay, our Sagittarius Rising friends. Stevie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this one looks fun. This one looks fun. If your partner wants to take you on a trip, go. Have fun. Or if you've never been, on a dating app, maybe try a dating app for the first time. This is definitely quite lovely. So take advantage of the niceness that people are going to exude. Also with a grain of salt because you have Jupiter there who might have bigger eyes than it does a stomach. Bigger eyes than stomach. Bigger eyes than a heart.
I love what you're saying. Well, for Sagittarius Rising, you've got your chart ruler transiting through your seventh for the next year or so. So, working with those partners, we've got the rulership, the Jupiter rule in the fifth house. So, if you are free and single and footloose and fancy free, maybe, going on dates and having fun in those relationships, all those kind of dynamics. I love that. The two benefics through there, absolutely. And the quicker moving planets, we've got the Sun, the Venus, and the Mercury, as we get deeper into June, will be transiting through your eighth house. So any thoughts there, Stevie?
Yeah, so the story that's unfolding here is interesting too, because right now we have Mars in the fifth. So that fifth and the seventh are both pretty lit up. So maybe it's even turning a casual relationship into a more serious eighth house shared resources relationship. So yeah, if you're in a transition period in your relationship, this definitely makes sense for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just notice in here we've got the Mars domicile, but we're transiting as we go into June into your sixth house. So this could mean a multitude of things and different themes. It could be reworking your daily habits. It could be working on health regimes. As it's been going through your fifth, maybe you've been involved in sports. Maybe you've been doing a lot of recreational activities. So maybe as Mars transits goes into its detriment, unfortunately, through the sixth house, if you've picked up any injuries, if you're playing any tennis or sports, going to the gym, all those kind of fun activities. Well, the gym's not a fun activity, but I would say maybe you're being a bit mindful as we get into June by making sure you're taking care of yourself
Yeah,
and making those points there. Yeah. And
absolutely.
we've had, for you, Sagittarius Rising, we've had the nodes, the North Node transiting through your fifth, South Node in the 11th. Any thoughts there, Stevie?
Yeah. Venus, I think the Venus Cazimi is really going to speak to the South Node. So that's definitely a good time for the reevaluations of who are your ride or die people in your friend group. Yeah, ride or die, North Node versus South Node. Who do you have fun with? And if you're not having fun in your relationships, it might be a time where you recognize, well, why am I in relationships that are just absolutely not fun? Like that's exhausting.
I love that. Those are great statements. So let us know, Sagittarius Rising, if what we're saying resonates with you. Of course, when we have that Venus Cazima, we're ruling the six, so it might somehow help out some of those matters.
Mhm.
And as we get later into June, we've got this Saturn in stationing to go retrograde here down here in your fourth house. Any thoughts there, Stevie?
Yeah, I think definitely maybe unearthing family histories, which change, depending on where your ascendant is. If you have a later or mid ascendant, that you might be experiencing changes in who you are as well, based on, unearthing things, or maybe you're just doing home improvement. Maybe there was a flood in your home, so you have to fix that, and put a lot of personal work into it. So yeah, it's angular for you from the fourth. So there's definitely going to be you or your partner or work might be impacted by this for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've got that Saturn rule in the second and the third houses, so
Mhm.
keeping that in mind, some of the themes that might pop up there.
Mhm.
Especially, I think, if this Saturn is your outer set malefic, if you have a night chart, maybe there's some reworking in the home here, as Stevie's been saying, maybe having to restructure. Maybe, sometimes you find I did, as Saturn was transiting through my fourth, things starting to break down a bit. So you're having to restructure, rebuild, all those kind of Saturn keywords coming through. So keeping an eye out on that. Absolutely. Wonderful. And the preponderance of planets for Sagittarius Rising, we're pretty much here on the western half of the chart. So we're still here dealing with others, particularly more in your second quadrant. I think we're focusing here more on immediate people in your life, as well as partnerships here in the seventh. So right now, all of these planets are kind of highlighting the western part of your chart. and particularly the second quadrant as well.
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
Wonderful. So let us know, Sagittarius Rising, how life has been treating you in the last couple of months and the last couple of weeks, and we'd love to know your thoughts in the comments.
Mhm.
Okay, Stevie, on to you, your Capricorn Rising. What's coming up for our Capricorn Rising friends?
Well, probably more cats coming into my video frame from the looks of it. When your animals take over your office, that's what's happening for me. Um, yeah, that's right now, six house topics. And for me and for depending on what's going on in everyone else's charts, if you have planets there, definitely looks like writing work, creating some kind of doing some kind of intellectual exercises. This is where the mental gymnastics thing really is coming back up for me of like just be careful how much you think you can commit to when it comes to these cadent houses, because they really are saying, you have to do what you have to do, even though all of the buoyancy of the benefics make you feel like you want to do so much more. But it's in conjunct to the ascendant, so there is that you it's too easy to overcommit in this relationship with the sixth house stuff popping off like this. So yeah, careful with commitments.
Absolutely. And your thoughts on some of the faster moving planets? So we've got the Sun, the Venus, the Mercury. As we get into June, is going to be transiting through your seventh house. Any thoughts there for Capricorn Rising?
Yeah, I would definitely say again, this would be a good time to get out there and flirt if you're looking and single. The seventh house with Venus there and Mercury could make you a lot more flirty and fun for a bit. Or just spending one-on-one time with people that you really care about. Again, you kind of brought this up with the smaller groups, the family unit, the people that are really intimate with you. Yeah, it looks lovely for that.
I love what you were saying before. You've got the greater benefic. We've got Jupiter ingressing into your sixth house for the best part of a year. So all the themes you've been talking about, Stevie, whether it's that probably that work component, maybe bold ideas coming in to things that you want to put forward and projects, but it's going to be a lot of hard work, it would seem, as we go through the sixth house in that time. But with hard work, that will hopefully pay off as well. We've got that Jupiter ruling the third as well. So writing down those notes, communicating with others, and putting things together. I love that. Fantastic. So how about Capricorn Rising? We've got the end. Let's go to that Mars, actually. So that Mars domicile in your fourth house. As we get into June, we'll be transiting into the fifth house. Any thoughts there, Stevie, with the Mars?
Yeah, just people who have issues with children, those issues might get peaked. Um, People who are, this is another one of like Mars on the fifth, it'd be a great time to run a marathon for a good cause. So it's a long-term thing that is going to be worked on. So it's always best to try and pick the good expression of something so that you can preoccupy yourself with like what you can do, because all hell is going to break loose too, no matter what. So Mars in the fifth is might put a little bit of a like harsh the mellow a little bit when it comes to again being the cleanup crew in this case. There was a party in the fifth house, and now Mars has to come in and collect all the garbage.
That's fantastic. It's interesting that Mars, it rules your 11th as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic changes from the cardinal fire into the fixed earth. Very, very interesting.
Mhm.
So as we get deeper into June 29th, we're going to have this Saturn, your chart ruler, stationing to go retrograde. It's been transiting through your third house for your Capricorn Rising. Any thoughts there, Stevie?
Yeah, reevaluating the self for sure. Going back over, third house topics as well, communication, travel, um, where can I go? What do I have access to? So Jupiter's sign wants to be expansive, but Saturn is restricting. So it's really, what do I have? What can I do? And sort of reevaluating the impact that you might make on others, especially with the Cancer transits as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've got that Saturn ruling, not only your chart ruler, ruling the second. So it's going to be interesting there in terms of, your values. You've got your financial resources, all those kind of elements that will pop in there as well.
Mhm.
Switching to the nodes, you've got really the only thing hovering in the southern hemisphere. We've got the south node in the 10th, north node in the fourth. Any thoughts there, Stevie, through the nodes?
Yeah, again, work stuff coming up, but also with the fourth, how you similar to the situation with how is your home supporting your health? How is your home supporting your ability to work? How is your personal environment also responsible for what you can offer to the world? So, with the South Node there, it might feel like you're doing a lot more work, then it might feel like never ending. Like, will I ever make it to this part of my career? So yeah, you will. The nodes will move, and it'll be a lot less stressful at that point. But right now, when we get into Cancer season, everything's going to be at the bendings of the nodes, so
Mm.
it's not going to resolve itself immediately by any means, and it could be a more of a time of tense nose to the grind.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, hopefully these benefics in early June
Mhm.
keep things up, and that's such a really good point. Interestingly, for you Capricorn Rising, if you look at the preponderance of the planets, you've really got a northern hemisphere emphasis here. We've got we've got all the planets below the horizon. We're a bit
Mhm.
more leaning to the second quadrant, a little bit more, but certainly we've got the dominant hemisphere, which is the northern hemisphere, which may be more about processing in the private life. Any thoughts there, Stevie, on the distribution of these planets?
Yeah, just a lot of it's demanding, but in a different way. It's demanding in a way where it might not be very obvious to everyone, everything that you're doing. So, we talked earlier about when, if you do have conflicts and verbal conflicts coming up, using those Kazemi moments to
Mm.
actually communicate to people about things. You may not recognize this, but I'm actually under a lot of pressure. I'm doing a lot of things. It might not be very obvious to you, but maybe being clear with people that you do have a lot going on and just remembering maybe they don't really, it's not so easy to notice how much you have going on, but you can always explain that to people.
That's a wonderful statement, and I like what you picked up there. Certainly, as that Mercury transits into the sixth house, it becomes Kazemi in there in the sticks. Maybe talking about, I've got a lot going on, so
Mhm.
being clear with people that Mercury is going to be strong, extra strength with that Kazemi. And as you're saying, Stevie, I've got a lot going on. Please give me time, or let me, on the outside or the public might not know how much work you're actually doing. Because I know Stevie, you're one of for as long as I've known you and what I do know about you, I know you're incredibly hardworking.
Yeah, the Capricorns. We won't generally tell people that kind of stuff, but
Mm.
when you have all of these southern planets, it might be useful to tell the people who are really meaningful to you, for sure.
I love that point. Yeah, that's what I found with my Capricorn rising friends. It's more that the stoic. Obviously, it depends where that chart ruler is and the condition of that in terms of element polarity. But on the balance, my Capricorn rising friends, I'm like, just speak to me, tell me what's going on. I know you work incredibly hard. Just let me know what's going on and how can I help you? Because I know you
Mhm,
don't want any help, but let me help you.
mhm, mhm. We need people like you, so thanks.
There you go. There you go. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Stevie. Capricorn Rising friends, let us know in the comments below. Let us know how your life is being going in the last couple of months and the last couple of weeks, and if anything that we're talking about here resonates.
Mhm.
Okay, on to our Aquarius Rising friends. Stevie, your thoughts?
Well, it's again with that party in the fifth house here. Now, Pluto is in the first house. I'm sure Aquarians are still sort of getting used to this. And later on, Pluto will dip back just to 29 one more time. So, yeah, I feel like the Mars that is going to eventually square Pluto from the fourth um, to the first,
Mm.
I think that could be extremely challenging. And yeah, we said issues at home before, but this is definitely issues at home. We have Saturn in the second as well. So maybe finances having to go into working on the house, maybe just a lot more activity in the house. This is also again coming up for maybe for Aquarius is they don't quite have their summer plans for their kids yet. So what are we going to do in the house? How do we structure it? Am I going to go to work? Am I going to take any time off? But for now, we have all that buoyancy in the fifth. So also, if you're, if you don't have any children but you want them, this is a lovely time to play around with that, for sure.
That's a really great point. We've got greater benefic. We've got Jupiter spending the best part of a year transiting through your fifth house. So those themes of children, if you're looking to expand your family,
Mhm.
whether working with children, whatever you might do. Also, maybe a time where maybe so if you've had issues at home, maybe some of the creative outlet that you have is to work on projects. It could be, getting involved in sports, or it could be, again, just staying at home, working on creative projects, ideas that you have to pull together. And maybe that's the outlet for you, as maybe some of these maybe more troubling planets, more of these malefics start. Of course, we've got the Mars here going from its domicile into its detriment as it transits through your fourth house. So, as Stevie's saying, there could be, not always, but there could be some sort of conflict at home, whether that's, we've got the Saturn in the second as well, the chart ruler. Could it be something to working on the house? Maybe things are breaking down, all the things that you need to fix. Yeah, all those things that you're saying, Stevie, I think very much apply. So maybe just keeping an eye out for that Mars. Or on the other time, it could just be that Mars putting more action into the home. Maybe you've decided to renovate or rebuild. So maybe
Put a
you're putting more
garden.
action,
Yep.
absolutely, that
Yeah.
energy into updating or doing those kind of things. But of course, we always have a positive and a shadow side to everything.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love what you're saying. Having a party in the fifth. So maybe that's some of the escapism.
Yeah, if you want to join a trivia game,
Mm,
go find somewhere to play trivia and Jupiter rules the 11, so it could be a really good time to join a team of some sort and feel like you're included and feel like you found the right group. So yeah, be open to groups and be open to enjoying things outside of the house, especially if things around the house can be a little stressful.
wonderful advice. So some of the quicker moving planets, we've got the Sun, the Venus, and the Mercury will eventually be making its way and transiting through your sixth house. Any thoughts there, Stevie?
Yeah, well, don't party too hard or else. Yeah, yeah. So sixth house is going to be again kind of nose to the grind. What do I have to take care of? Do I have all the cat food? Um, do we want to take in another animal? What does it look like at work? What does it look like at in my health? Is my work adding to my health or detracting from it at this point?
Hmm. That's a really great point. And if we switch the nodes for you, Aquarius Rising, we've had the eclipses bouncing from your third to your ninth.
Mhm.
But as we're looking at the transiting nodes, we've got the south node up here in the ninth and north node in the third. Any thoughts there, Stevie?
Yeah, I definitely feel like the North Node in the third may have been putting a lot more emphasis on locality. Maybe it feels like you're really far away from doing anything bigger and you're kind of stuck on the smaller scale or the smaller stage. Um, so there's tension there, and that tension can also be related to that, when everything ingresses into Cancer and we have the Sun at the bendings, Venus at the bendings, Mercury at the bendings, exacerbating that. Maybe there are classes that you really want to take right now, but you just can't pull the money together or the time because of work constraints. So I think focusing on the smaller things that you can control at this point. So if you can't take a full astrology class, maybe you can just go to a lecture nearby, at an astrology group, or maybe you can join an astrology club that's free. So there's other options outside of that higher education realm that can still pique the interest of your ninth house activities and things. Just doing them on the smaller scale.
Wonderful advice. I like what you're saying, especially as some of those planets get to those bendings of the nodes as well and keeping those themes. Absolutely. So actually looking at Saturn later in the month, June 29th, we'll have Saturn stationing to go retrograde. Of course, Saturn is your chart ruler. We're located here in the second house. What are your thoughts, Stevie?
Yeah, so it's a little bit tougher for Aquarians right now than it is Capricorns because we have Saturn can make an aspect to our first house. So in this case, Saturn is unbeholden to Aquarius, and there might still be those forced changes or personal differences, but it might not be as easy to see firsthand. Other people might notice that you're changing more than you do. Other people might notice that you're definitely going through something, and maybe it's something that you haven't even noticed. So that might get picked back up with this retrograde motion as well.
Great point. And I think just as standalone as Saturn has been transiting through the second house, there are always flip sides, there are always positives, and the shadow side. Possible shadow sides could be some restrictions in finances, maybe, particularly if that Saturn is the outer set malefic. Depends. Obviously, you've got to look at your own natal chart and the condition of that chart to look at these areas. But as Saturn is transiting through the second house, maybe having to pull back or restrain yourself some way in terms of revenues. Maybe for some people it might be having to lose a particular area, all those kind of things, but keeping those in mind of some of those themes. Absolutely. Wonderful. And we've touched on the node. So for Aquarius Rising, you've got the preponderance of the planets well below the horizon in the northern hemisphere. You're really in this private part of life. Not to say that you don't have a public life, even though the houses are empty, but there is an emphasis here on the preponderance of the planets under the horizon in the northern hemisphere. Any thoughts there, Stevie, on the horizons?
Yeah. Again, it's just I kind of like to look at it as like the more personal flip to the more external outer flip. So it's a lot of heading into that Eastern as well. A lot of personal development happening, a lot of things in your own world, and maybe that are like they're gonna call you out into the external world. But yeah, there's a lot of sort of an alchemical personal process happening with all of the northern planets there.
That's a wonderful statement. Yeah, we might have a slight more emphasis in the first quadrant here, but we're certainly, as you're saying, Stevie, we're a bit more private. You're working on the self-development, or you might also be working or being close contact with people in home and family and people close to you around. So yeah, absolutely great statements. Okay, Aquarius Rising friends, let us know in the comments how life has been treating you in the last couple of months and last couple of weeks. We'd love to hear your comments in the comment box. And last but not least, our Pisces Rising friends. Stevie, what are your thoughts?
Poor Pisces. Pisces have definitely, we're going straight for the Saturn with this one. Everything in Gemini is going to square the Saturn. So, this process has already been ongoing for Pisces. So it's just going to be more exacerbated in June. Once everything hits Cancer, there's going to probably be a relief. I have a really good friend who is a Pisces ascendant, and he says that he believes that he will be fully bald by the time Saturn leaves Pisces.
Is that right? Oh, wow.
So he is experiencing hair loss before he turned 30. And he's like, yeah, it's probably all gonna be gone by the time Saturn. So, that's the more like dramatic version of it. But if you guys feel like you're literally losing your hair, you probably are right now. And we should all be a little gentle with you. And so all of the mutable air stuff is going to trigger the Saturn. Whatever you have been going through, the personal changes or demands that you're having to deal with, they could be exacerbated at the beginning of June for sure.
That's a really good point. And yeah, that can't be, especially if the Pisces rising, the Saturn is your outer set malefic, other things to consider as well, the condition of your own natal chart. But yeah, as that Saturn slows down and starts to go, you might be feeling that more, particularly if you've got rising degrees around where Saturn's going to be stationing to go retrograde. Certainly keep an eye out for that and pay attention to to your body, your appearance, and just keeping that possibly that health component in mind as well.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Faster moving planets for you, Pisces Rising. We've got the Sun, the Venus, and the Mercury, which will be transiting as we get further into June into your fifth house. And I think, Stevie, you've touched on that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so that should be when some of the salve, you get a chance to put some salve on that wounds because it looks rough. So it should be a lot more smoother, a lot less demanding, really. And maybe just a time to do kind of low key fifth house activities, nothing too wild,
Mm.
but also if you think about the trine to Saturn, this is again one of the charts where you want to get like a good hobby that you want to keep for a long time. So if you are looking to start a new hobby this summer, when all of the planets are in Cancer, trine Saturn, that's a long-term investment that you can make for the good.
Oh, that's wonderful, wonderful statement. So yeah, maybe a bit more low key, something that maybe is more durable over time.
Mhm.
But as some of these planets start to ingress there, we've got the lesser benefic. We've still got Venus going through there. Maybe a bit more low key creativity. Certainly, if you've got any projects in mind to do. And as you're saying, Stevie, as we move from that square to some of this Saturn stuff into your ascendant, we move where it eases up a little bit. We're in the same element. We're getting into water. I love that statement. For you, Pisces Rising, you've had Mars domicile, but it's been going through your second house, and it's going to, as we're going through to June, it's going to move into your third house. Any thoughts there, Stevie?
Yeah, this is another one of the signs that should stay away from traffic and the third, there might be a lot more energy putting into running around doing errands. Also could be a lot of, having to talk a lot more than or you have to in other parts of the year, having to do communications. And also this is a good one for a marathon as well because they take place in the third house in the neighborhood. So, well, I
Oh,
really like the Mars detriment for its ability to make a big impact over a slow period of time, not instantaneously. So whatever you're focusing on, maybe you're gonna volunteer at a community garden, or maybe your neighbor is very annoying at this time of year. Maybe your neighbor plants something and it's falling over into your yard and you have to deal with that.
I love that. So there could be an element of conflict there with Mars going through, transiting through the third house. I love how you bring in that fixed Earth quality in there as well. So it's slowing down a bit with that Mars.
Mm.
Certainly be careful in terms of your communications with others. There may be some conflict there as well on the shadow side. But certainly, again, we can have positives, we can have shadow sides, but take some of that positivity and try and work with that. What we do have in terms of, nice news, even though it's going to be eventually squaring your ascendant. Sometimes that can be good or overdoing things, but we're going to have the greater benefic Jupiter transiting through your fourth house over the period of a year or so. Any thoughts there, Stevie, on Jupiter?
Yeah, that's just quite lovely. Again, just very happy, buoyant. Um Again, it kind of strikes me as like a breath of fresh air too.
Hmm.
So if you have plans to move or if you haven't, yeah, these are going to be great times to apply to rent a house or something. If you want to rent a place, apply to own a house. Maybe interview people who, if you need roommates, interviewing roommates under this weather, it could be really nice. It does square the ascendant, but if you think about it, it is like, well, a lot of things that we have to do to make our lives better is work. So if you need a roommate because it'll be better for your finances, take the good astral weather to find that. You don't have to say there was somebody once who was like, you know, looking for a roommate will not have like a Capricorn live here or a jet, whatever it is. Um, yeah, this is the time to do that, but this is the time to say, oh, there's a Kazemi in the fourth. So if I'm going to interview for a roommate, it would be fantastic to do it while Jupiter is in the fourth.
That's
Something
such a
giving that positivity.
That's such a great point. So there's that Mercury transit, and we find that cazimi, Mercury strong in domicile as well. So again, as you said, Stevie, that breath of fresh air, communicating, seeing what you need. Of course, Jupiter is your chart ruler. And as you're saying, whether home or family, even if you're looking to say, build an extension or expand your house in some way or where you live, or maybe with that air quality, maybe freeing up some stuff. Maybe if it's things that feel a bit cluttered, or there's too much going around, maybe make some air, make it a bit more airy and cleaner, and so you can get that breath of fresh air for you guys. So, but there's absolutely wonderful. And for Pisces Rising, you've got the nodes. Of course, we've had the eclipses since 2023, going through your 2nd and 8th houses. We've got the North Node transiting through your 2nd, the South Node through the 8th. Any thoughts there, Stevie?
Yeah, well, this is all, it looks like whatever kind of spending was happening is going to slow down for sure with Mars leaving the nodes. Then, when we get the planets going into Cancer, we get the planets of the bendings again. So whereas it might be good for you and yourself in the first, it might be more challenging for the finances. South node is in the 8th in this case. So in this case, I don't think we're looking at the most happy or positive tax returns or issues with money sharing. Probably not the best time to get a loan for Pisces. Probably a good time to just monitor and keep track of your finances and with the self-worth piece, defining is what you are doing, is it valuable to you? Like what is really valuable? Yeah.
That's really great advice. I think if you're really desperate and need to get a loan, maybe wait for that Venus cazimi, who knows, and see what else is going on in your natal chart as well. Wonderful. And with the preponderance of the planets for you, Pisces Rising, we're really here, preponderance in the Northern Hemisphere, particularly in the first quadrant. There's an emphasis here on your self-development. We don't have too much going on the west part of the chart, dealing with others. So my advice would be just focusing on yourself. What do you value? Working on your finances, working on your body, yourself, your home and family. I think for you right now is just everything is a bit more private. Not that you don't have a public life, but a lot of these planets transiting, this is the emphasis or the area that's being highlighted. And any thoughts there, Stevie?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with Mars, it's going to square Pluto in the 12th. So there is definitely also that level of, again, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all type of thing. Keep to yourself, stay out of the conflict, and use your own privacy as a place where you can find peace from the world.
Wonderful. Fantastic advice. So far, Pisces Rising friends, let us know how your life has been going in the last couple of months, the last couple of weeks. Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you all for watching. It's been Stevie. Thank you so much for joining us for the first series of our monthly forecast. Absolutely wonderful to have you with us again. I would like to actually ask you what's coming up for you and what's coming up right now at Kepler College.
Thanks for having me, Cal. It was really fun to be the first. I hope we were good for the first, but if we had any hiccups, just let us be because this is our first. And that was really exciting. So thank you. I am gonna be teach assisting at Kepler for fundamentals. I am also working with Inga on astromythology, and I'll be potentially doing a history class with Inga. I also have a DIY print zine that comes out solstice and equinoxes, and it's at wilderastrology.com. And in it, I have cool things like this moon to benefic tracker, which keeps track of whenever the moon is making an aspect of harmony to Jupiter or Venus.
I'll stop my screen share so we can see on the bigger screen. Hold on. Let's have a look.
Cool. Thanks, Cal. And then we have horary mystery that you get to solve. So definitely check out wilderastrology.com.
That is so cool.
Order a zine. And thank you. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, for everyone watching, I'll leave those links for Stevie, and that the zine sounds absolutely brilliant. Stevie is an absolutely brilliant teacher. So once you're going into any of the classes we're doing at Kepler, certainly check out Stevie's webinar on medieval speed runs. That's a bit more advanced as you dive in more into horror and more technical side of the astrology, but absolutely a brilliant webinar. Check that out as well. And do we want to say a little bit about what might be happening? Do we want to give a teaser to what we might be doing?
Yeah, okay. That'd be fun. So there's a little something in the works. We're gonna go live in a couple of weeks, most likely. But I'm reinventing the advice line. So advice columns were always really interesting to me, Dear Abby's type stuff. So I am going to modernize it a bit, and it's going to become an audio experience. It's an advice line audio experience where you can ask me about your chart, and me and some of my fantastic astrologer friends will be there to answer your questions. We'll also have an astrologer good secrets line where you can leave interesting astrological secrets or experiences that you have. So, advice line, what does it mean when Pluto's transiting my natal moon? Well, let me let you know. So, look out for that. And thanks, Cal. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had to let the cat out of the bag. I was like, let's give a little teaser for
I
that one.
love it.
Fantastic. So everyone, yeah, keep an eye out for that. That's going to be a brilliant new project with Stevie, with the advice line and everything else that's going on. I'll leave all the links in the descriptions as well. So thank you all for watching. This is our first one, so let us know how we got on, and we look forward to doing it next month as well. And we'll see Stevie again coming back later down the road. So thank you so much, Stevie. It's an absolute pleasure today, and thank you all for watching.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Cheers.